Hello, I'm Dynast Amir.
So I reached out to another friend of mine. I said, look, I need to go on vacation somewhere. Where should I go? He said, go to Africa. And not only am I going to go, I'm going to explore a new country. So I went to Tanzania, South Africa, Namibia, Mali, Senegal, Morocco, Liberia, Namibia, Kenya, the Voodoo Festival in Ouida, Gambia, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire. Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria. It's been a beautiful experience, just learning more about our culture, our indigenous culture. So Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. I'm in search of my roots. In finding that, I would experience my Uhuru, which is freedom.
Till next time, Dynast Amir, I'm out.
I mean, there's a lot of colorism in television for sure, and that bothers me because it doesn't really reflect the who we. It's not really a fair representation of who Latin Americans are necessarily, but most of the time we are not consumed by identity politics. We're consumed with our economic standing, where we fit economically.
Shaggy Rogers, go ahead.
Yeah, hello, Dynast. Can you hear me good?
Yes, sir.
I just want to come on to speak about the whole Black and Brown coalition thing. To be honest, I don't think it's really necessary. I think that as people, we get along best in our respective groups. That doesn't mean you can't have friends that are of different ethnicities or date outside of your race or anything like that. But don't expect to be completely accepted or integrated into other people's communities. Because I remember one time I actually dated a Hispanic girl. I remember I was on the phone with her one time. I had her on speaker and she didn't know. And I heard her stepmother in the background. She said, is he dark or whatever? You might not be able to have kids with him. And that shocked me. I was like, damn, man. It's like you see how other people really view you, And it's just like, I don't think the coalition thing is really that necessary. I think we all need to just respect each other and, kind of stay within our own boundaries, to be honest.
Well, I would like to ask the other African Americans on this channel, what exactly does the coalition mean, and what exactly do you expect it would do for you?
I think when they push this coalition, it's like there's a pie, that they're, just imagine there's a pie and, we're going to divide it up evenly amongst all the different groups. I think that's what they mean by like a coalition. Like we're all going to work together and come together united as one.
Towards what goal? I mean, what's the objective? I mean,
well, a lot of times when I hear people use a black and brown coalition, it's, and especially whenever I guess Latinos act out, it's, we're supposed to be fighting white supremacy together, but you Latinos are acting like the white supremacists. So I guess to fight white supremacy, that's the
white supremacy is a fiction. You know what kind of people identify with that kind of thinking? Poor people with no power whatsoever. Those are the kind of people that identify with white supremacy. It's a boogeyman that doesn't exist. I'm not saying there aren't people that, aren't on your side, but they don't matter as much as you think they do. Like the poorest people I've known in my lifetime were broke-ass white people in trailer parks. They have no power.
Let me read this super chat. The man is worried about CRT when the most destructive thing in schools is CGT, critical gender theory. I agree, i.e. feminist studies. Why should white women be placed ahead of black men? I don't know. Pan-Africanism strikes back. Go ahead, bro.
Dynast, all I want to call attention to was everything that you see the black people coming up here talking about is how the white man's doing this or that and how they're the victim of what the white man is doing. You haven't heard one person come up here other than modern Renaissance men who came through and talked about our reaction to what white people are doing. Anybody, they're literally got a guest here who's a very knowledgeable guy, and he happens to be Mexican. They're not asking him, what do you think about the way Hispanics react to attacks and, disenfranchisement by the white power structure, gives them an advantage over the way black people react to it. It's all just doing what we do here. Like this guy doesn't even need to be here because all we're doing is what we do every day. Sit up and point out problems, and we want him to join us in sitting up and lamenting the problems. And then when he says, oh, well, this is the case, well, I don't agree. Like you got Alex B. You're disagreeing about a guy about what's going on in Mexico. You're not Mexican. You don't live in Mexico. Probably never been to Mexico. But now you're trying to be the know-it-all authority of what's going on in this guy's country. And that's why these conversations for black people, you could bring the president up in here and it will be useless because we don't want to change our reaction or find solutions. We just want people to join us in bashing the white man for doing this, that, and other. And let me tell you something, and this is my last point. When the guy said, Mexican Condor said, what is the goal, right? You notice it was all silence, right? Because we don't have a goal. Our goal is to gain acceptance from the same white people we claim to dislike. If you look at Martin Luther King, if you look at all our leaders, what have our leaders been leading us towards? Why do we follow them? Because they promised you that they were going to make this white man accept you as his equal so you could go eat cookies and ice cream at the ice cream parlor with Sally Rottencrotch, right? So there is no coalition. The Hispanic is in a damned if you do or damned if you don't position when dealing with when dealing with black people, because they don't realize our goal is to join white supremacy in ruling over them. And we're mad because they won't bend over and let us step on their neck so they can prop us up to reach the white supremacist spaces. So there's no Mexican black coalition. And even if they tried to form one, we would be absolutely useless in that because we would do nothing but sabotage them in exchange for promised or potential white butter biscuits. We can't have a coalition with anyone because we don't even want to fight or gain freedom or independence. We want to be dependent and gain acceptance from whites.
Your thoughts on that, Mexican Condor? Then I'll pass it to Jay to inform it. Go ahead, Mexican Condor.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I think the best advice I can give the African American community is stop caring about this notion of, acceptance. Do for yourself. I mean, if you drive around Los Angeles, how many Mexican restaurants do you see? Thousands.
Ton.
Every
in fact, when I come back to LA, my favorite Mexican restaurant is in Koreatown. It's called Guelaguetza. I miss it.
I've been there. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, you see thousands of Mexican restaurants, and every commercial vehicle, the placards are in Spanish. It's Hernandez Trucking, Jimenez Roofing, and so on. stop worrying about what white people think and just get to work. That's all we really can do. That's all, and then the future will take care of itself.
He just committed sin in the black community. What? Stop worrying about what white people doing. You just said, man. If you were around a mob of black people right now, they would probably try to lynch you for saying that, because other black people have said that for decades. But we don't realize, black people don't realize our existence has become defined ever since civil rights. Our very existence in this country is defined by acceptance from white people. This is why Mexican Condor, even being older, the first black civil rights leader, the first black leader you were ever taught about in school, no doubt, was Martin Luther King. Am I wrong or am I right?
Oh yeah, of course. That's universal.
Right. Why? Because that's the guy who told that is the guy who programmed black people to believe that white acceptance is the metric for black happiness. That is the only measurable scale by which you can measure black achievement and black happiness. So to say that, don't worry about the white man, that's pretty much like telling us to go kill ourselves in this country, because we don't see nothing outside of that.
Well, I think African Americans could really benefit by traveling and seeing the world. Outside of the United States, you're not black, you're just an American. And I think it would be beneficial for y'all to have a different perspective. And in Latin America, there is an African diaspora in every nation. I mean, you can go and experience that for yourselves, and just and I don't know what you'll take away from it, but I think it's important to expose yourself to something outside of what of the only world you know.
And leave this good white man.
Hold on, Brandon. Yeah, I mean, like maybe 5% of black people even have passports. But Jay the Informant, go ahead, Jay. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, what's going on, man? How y'all doing, man?
Well, good.
Hey, I would have to say I hate to say this, but I actually agree with everything Pan African Strikes Back. I don't agree with him much, but he made some valid points up here. So did a Mexican Condor. So actually, I would 100% agree on the Martin Luther King thing. I think that the reason that they propagandized him in front of the black community was because of the goals that they wanted the black community to go to, which was white acceptance. And they didn't promote Malcolm X, because Malcolm X in a lot of his speeches, whether it was the field Negro versus the house Negro, or whether it was the ballot box or the bullet, or I forgot the other speech he gave, those were some inspirational speeches. And he called out Malcolm X plenty. I mean, he called out Martin Luther King plenty of time about him being held up by white propagandists to tell the black community the wrong message, and get us to, I guess, tap dancing for white people and white acceptance and all that. I do believe that is kind of over. I think that's phasing out, even though you have people like Warnock just trying to invoke Martin Luther King all the time. He's always trying to invoke Martin Luther King. But I actually had a question, for American Condor. With the reverse migration, when it comes to Mexico, I believe, and this is just a personal question for you. I don't know if you actually have a problem with it. Do you have a problem with Americans going to Mexico and increasing buying up a lot of I would say buying up a lot of territory, like close to the beaches?
Absolutely not. I mean, Mexico has over 5,000 miles of Pacific and Caribbean coastline, and the vast majority of it is undeveloped. There's plenty for everybody.
I just want to know your perspective on that. Okay.
I mean, I would like to buy some beach property myself as well. I mean, if Mexico was a more investor-friendly country with security and a functioning judicial system that ensures that I don't get defrauded, yeah, I'd be there in a heartbeat. I would reverse migrate myself.
Go ahead, Chrissy, and then we'll pass it back to Brandon. Go ahead, Chrissy.
Yes, hi everyone. This is really a good conversation, and Mexican Condor, I wish you could they could broadcast you on CNN and MSNBC for the Black masses to hear that every community.
Oh man, they listen, Chrissy. Even if they did, Black folks will make every excuse in the book on how he's a paid agent, or how, because I mean, dude, listen, even when it comes to the situation with the LA City Council, like the women, the people were caught on tape saying this stuff, and they are in damage control like a mother. So I mean, I wish you would too, but we're past that point.
Yeah,
The
because
majority of us,
yeah,
we're just past that point. Because again, it
That's
all falls back to these Republicans are racist and they're hiding in our pillowcases and they're gonna show up at any moment. That's what it falls back. That's what it falls back to. But go ahead, Chrissy.
yeah, this fear mentality, because every other community looks out for their community first. Especially when resources get slim, people tend to get very tribal. They look out for their who's in their home, and then who else looks like them, who else they have a connection, camaraderie with, culturally, linguistically, etc. We seem to not get that. And what I think is good, even for some folks in the audience to hear as well, is yes, we know there's no story like the Black story. It's unique to anyone on the planet. There's no story like the Black American story. We know that. We understand the struggles and the hills and the valleys that Black people have had to travel, and are still understanding that the residue of that. But we cannot stay stuck just marinating in that. I had a friend who we were caught from college, and we're no longer friends. She actually cut me off. She's FBA. She was a Tariqite, and she got really wrapped up in this, and it was really one conversation that this broke the friendship off. But she is an educator, and she wanted to start her own business and start a course talking about white supremacy, because she feels that a lot of Black immigrants don't know that they're victims of white supremacy, and she needs to have them understand. She had this mantra which also said, I'm a victim of white supremacy. I can't live my life with that in my mindset. You know what I'm saying? Do I know that Black people are disadvantaged? Do I know that even when we look at Africa and the Caribbean, are we disadvantaged compared to those who colonize us? Yes, we are. So I understand that dynamic, but I cannot walk through life. I'm a victim of white supremacy. How can I rise? How can I be positive? How can I achieve things if that is swarming in my head all the time? You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, there has to be a mental shift. And what I think at first I didn't fully understand the CRT thing, but I do see how it is damaging if it is telling Black kids, hey, you're a victim of white supremacy, and white folk, hey, you're
No,
the whatever.
Chris, here's my thing with the CRT. The same people
Mhm.
who complain about CRT won't bring up how they're teaching the children in these schools that a boy who identifies as a girl can be a girl now.
Because it all goes together. It's the people who are for CRT are for the whole gender ideology. It's a complete unraveling, and it's going to do more detriment to Black people, because if we raise our children that you are oppressed, right? We should raise them understanding their history, right? And not just slavery. When I talk to my children about history, I start from the world began. The first people on the planet looked like you, because that's where your history begins, in Africa, and the civilizations in Africa. Then I roll down to history. I get there eventually, because it is a snapshot in our global story as a people. But you cannot saturate yourself, in this. I've had folks like, oh, they're in a room, professionally, and they're only a Black person there. They feel uncomfortable. I'm walking around. I don't give a damn. I don't feel uncomfortable. I'm not always thinking, oh, I'm the only Black person here. When you paralyze yourself, you paralyze your ability to be successful. We have to free our minds from this. It's a form of mental slavery, right? So, I mean, Bob Marley said, free your mind from mental slavery. None but ourselves can do it. None of ourselves can free our minds. We have to do that. We understand the context of American history, or wherever you are, but we still have to move forward. We are paralyzing ourselves, worrying about this stuff all the time, and it's unhealthy. And we are going to find ourselves in a permanent underclass position, which is a form of slavery, instead of gathering up with your tribe and working together so you can build like everybody else. So that's all I want to say.
Let me read this super chat. Condor, where are the Black people in Mexico, and why don't more of them immigrate to America?
Well, as far as I'm aware, I know there's a significant African population in Guerrero State, um, because Mexico also had a colonial slave history as well. Um, why they don't immigrate to America? That I really can't answer that question. I know there's a few of them here in Los Angeles. I know you can look up. There's a couple restaurants you can find that have been reviewed on YouTube. Um, but yeah, there's the African diaspora all over Latin America. You can do your research online. You can find them. I hope I answered your question.
You did. Go ahead, Caesar. Or hold on, Brandon. You want to ask something else, Brandon?
Yeah, all I want to say before I get off, Mexican Condor, one thing I believe you can really do to help the Black community is when you interact with your people, Mexican people, I want you to be a person who goes there and sets the record straight. Black Americans do not want to work with Hispanics or Mexicans or Latinx for any real goal, not for prosperity, not for equity, none of these lies that we say. Black people want to use Mexican people as a vehicle for gaining access to white spaces and eventually gaining white acceptance, right? This is why Black people try to recruit Mexicans to the Democratic Party. This is why you got Black people across the country angry with the Mexicans down in Texas for voting for Mayra Flores, a conservative candidate who immigrated from Mexico and could see the forest for the trees and saw that these white liberals don't have the best interest of any working person at heart, right? Texas. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with you. They do not have the interests of working class people of any race or ethnicity. They just do not.
So when you go back to your Mexican brothers and sisters, and I know you get this in your community, man, we need to work with the Blacks. They enslaved them. They mistreated them. Yeah, you get all that, the sad story. But you need to tell your people, look, the way we're going to help these people is not by crawling down to their level of victimhood. The way we're going to help these people is not even listening to them unless they make a clear plan, a clear agenda, not written by whites, but written by them. They have written themselves, and they can present that to us, identifying a mutual goal and a mutual benefit, a clear goal and a mutual benefit. Do not, like the brother Renaissance man said, do not give us a walker. Do not give us a 4-point